Hello and welcome back to Fun with History. In this video, we will talk about the Industrial Revolution. Well, really we are going to talk about the first and the second Industrial Revolutions. And I have divided this unit into 9 points. Well, in the first one, we will talk about what is the Industrial Revolution and where and when did it appear. In the second one, we will see what are the causes, what happened to led to this revolution. In the third one, we will see the start of the revolution. In the fourth, we will study the technical innovations. In the number 5, we will see what is the industrialization, so the expansion to the rest of Europe and the United States. In the point number 6, we will talk about economy, the banking and the capitalism. Point number 7 is dedicated to the second industrial revolution, and point number 8 about the new society that appeared, the bourgeoisie and the new working class, the proletariat. And with this point led to the number 9, what is the workers' organization. Well, and without further delay, let's start with the first point. What is and where did it appear? It's the transition to new manufacturing processes, and it started in Great Britain. The first revolution can be dated between 1760 and 1870, and the second one between the end of the first one and the beginning of the First World War, 1914. Now, let's talk about the causes of the Industrial Revolution. Why did it appear in England? There were different reasons. For example, the innovations in agriculture, the growth of population, or the new energy sources such as coal or steam. Let's see what were the changes in agriculture. One of the main reasons for the agricultural revolution was the transition from the open field system to the new closed field system caused by the Enclosure Acts, which are the laws introduced in England that allow the landowners to turn communal fields into private fields. This provoked that the workers had to leave the countryside and go to the cities to find new works. Well, in addition, the introduction of new innovations in farming, such as the selective breeding, the better plows that require few animals to pull them, the invention of seed drills, and the Norfolk system created by somebody who is usually called Lord Turnip, what is a new method of crop rotation without leaving any plot in fallow. Well, all these changes forced laborers to leave the countryside and migrate to the cities, where they became industrial workers, where they are going to become proletariat. On the other hand, these changes gave a big profit that led the landowners the possibility to invest money in other fields, such as, for example, industry. Between 1800 and 1851, the British population passed from 9 million inhabitants to 18 million inhabitants. The cause was the decrease in death rate thanks to the improving sanitation, hygiene, medicine, improvement in nutrition due to these advantages in agriculture, and a high birth rate. Thinkers such as Malthus thought that this population growth could be dangerous. Food and space were no longer enough to maintain this great amount of population, and postulated ideas such as delaying the marriage age to have fewer children. Well, other changes in Britain, such as the scientific revolution with the ideas of enlightenment, the growing trade, including the trade of the slave trade, and the patents or licenses that the government gave to the inventors, gave the perfect conditions that helped to make the Industrial Revolution possible. Well, let's pass now to point number 3, the start of the Industrial Revolution. In Britain, but also in other European countries, products were usually created in workshops, but also was widely spread the cottage or domestic system. With the Industrial Revolution, both were substituted by factories where workers were constantly controlled. In factories, manual labor was substituted by machines and with a new division of labor, where each worker had a specific task to do. By this way, the production became cheaper and faster. Usually, factories were located close to the rivers because they used hydraulic machinery. But later, with the use of steam, they wouldn't need to be located close to rivers. Well, now let's talk about the technical innovations. The most innovative industries during the first revolution were the textile, the iron industry, and the transports. The three of them evolved thanks to the creation of the steam engine. Traditionally, British people used wood for heating, but due to the decrease of forest, began to use coal. The growing population demanded more coal and was necessary to dig deeper in the quarries to find more coal. But these mines were filled up with water and they needed to drain them. The first pumps were powered by horses, but in 1712, Thomas Newcomen invented the steam machine that produced steam and provided power to the pump. In 1788, James Watt improved the machine, making it more efficient. This could be considered the start of the revolution. The new steam machine was soon used in the different industries. The textile one had introduced new innovations such as the spinning jenny, a hand-powered machine that produced yarn from raw cotton and was 20 times as fast as a traditional spinning wheel. The iron industry produced cast iron and steel. Before the revolution, it was melted in ovens heated with wood, but during the revolution, it was substituted by coal and coke, that made it cheaper to produce cast iron. In addition, Cort improved the iron production with the invention of paddling that made it more resistant and with the rolling. These innovations grew the production of cast iron and steel that became indispensable for the industrial age, mainly for the second industrial revolution. The steam engine was soon applied to transports, led to the creation of locomotives and steamboats. George Stephenson designed the rocket, the first locomotive capable to go up slopes that was used in the first passengers railway inaugurated in 1830 that went from Liverpool to Manchester. Steam trains made quicker and easier to transport goods and people and helped to transform the European society. The new manufacturing processes spread through other countries. This is called industrialization. Belgium, France, and Germany are known as the first commerce, so the first countries that were industrialized after Britain. Belgium was the first one in being industrialized. It had large coal and iron deposits. Germany, unified in 1871, had large coal fields in the Ruhr Valley and was soon industrialized. However, France had a large agricultural tradition and this industrialization was quite slow. The last countries to join the industrialization are called latecomers and were Spain, Italy, Portugal, Austria, and Russia, where the weight of the agrarian system and the old regime were strong. In Russia, we will have to wait until the abolition of serfdom in the year 1861. The changes in economy led to the development of new economic theories. In the 18th century, most of the European governments believed in mercantilism. Remember, that is the theory that says that a country becomes rich by accumulating precious metals and reducing imports. In his book, The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith postulated a new theory. A nation's wealth is all of the goods that it produces and its commerce, so not just gold and silver. According to Adam Smith, the best way to increase wealth is to encourage free enterprise, allow people to invest their money however they like. Remember that it is one of the bases of liberalism. His arguments were that trade is good for buyers and sellers, and governments should allow free trade. Competition helps to keep prices low, and this is the law of supply and demand. On the other hand, industrialization led to a new stage of capitalism, the industrial capitalism. Originally, the first industries were small and were financed by individual capital, but when they grew, they demanded greater investments. Then appeared different ways to increase the capitals. The company's capital could be divided in shares and that the investors could buy. It is called joint stock company. The investors that then share not only the risk but also the profits. Banks became increasingly important, accepted deposits from savers and lent the money to companies in exchange for interests. It is what we do nowadays. Well, let's talk now about the second industrial revolution. You should remember that the first industrial revolution led to a huge increase in different industries: coal, iron, textile, ceramics, and transports. In the second half of the 19th century, the use of oil, steel, and electricity led to other big change in society. This is called the Second Industrial Revolution and took place in countries such as Germany, the United States, or the USA. In the 1850s, the first oil wells began to be exploited. The oil allowed the development of the explosion engines. Rudolf Diesel invented the internal combustion engine in 1893, which worked with oil. In the United States, the Second Industrial Revolution is associated with the invention of the dynamo in 1869 and the electrification by Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison, which was the work on public lighting. In principle, he created the incandescent light bulb in 1879 that was perfectly until adding metallic filaments. The street lighting improved the conditions of daily life in the whole world. In the 1880s, the first power plants began to be created. The most important industries, apart from the electrical one and this new incandescent lamp, were the chemical industry with the invention of explosive dyes, fertilizers, or drugs such as the aspirin that was created by Bayer in 1897. The automotive. In 1885, Carl Benz invented the first car that worked with naphtha, with gasoline. But there were other inventions in the field of transports that make the industry continue to advance: the creation of the tram or the metro, and finally the invention of the Wright brothers airplane. Food industry also advanced, creating the tin cans or pasteurization. And we cannot forget the steel industry. Steel is stronger and lighter than iron. But until 1855, when Bessemer invented the Bessemer system, it was really expensive. This new system made possible to use the steel in new ways, such as architecture or steel ships. You may probably know the Eiffel Tower, created by Gustave Eiffel, or in Madrid, the Crystal Palace in the Retiro, designed by Velázquez. The work organization changed during the Second Industrial Revolution. The division of labor is perfected by giving a scientific approach and greater control that are specified in Taylorism and Fordism. revolution is also the era of communications. For example, Bell invented the telephone, Marconi invented the telegraph, and the Lumiere brothers patented the cinematograph. During the Industrial Revolution, a class society developed where people's status depended on their wealth, their jobs, and their power. We can divide this society into three different groups: the upper class, or high bourgeoisie, formed by business people; the middle class, or low bourgeoisie, formed by merchants, lawyers, doctors, civil servants; and finally the working class, or proletariat, name given to the industrial workers who lived in harsh conditions. They had long shifts from 14 to 16 hours, low wages, loud. They had to hear a constant noise in the factories, the noise of the machinery, extremely high temperatures in summer and low temperatures in winter. Think that between the 30 and the 70% of the forced labor was formed by women and children who started working at a very young age. They hadn't insurances or retirement, lived in overcrowded neighborhoods with poor sanitation. Their diet was based on bread and potatoes, and 4 out of 10 children did not exceed the 5 years old. This situation led to a labor movement. The first movements consisted on strikes and protests against mechanization, including the destruction of machines like the Luddites. But later, workers began to join trade unions, an organization that represents the people who work in a particular industry and protects their rights and discusses their pay and working conditions with employers. At the same time, workers began a political battle which aim was to achieve equal rights. Thus emerged the Chartism, followed by Marxism or socialism and anarchism. Chartism comes from the People's Chart, a document signed in 1838 that claimed for universal male suffrage or, for example, secret ballots. Marxism was preceded by the utopian socialists, who seek to freedom, equality, and fraternity in a peaceful manner. However, Marx and Engels thought that it was completely impossible, and they proposed a revolution that bring to the proletariat to power. This would be called the proletariat dictatorship. Marx, considered the father of communism, wrote the Communist Manifesto, where he explained the aims of communism, the dictatorship of the proletariat, and the abolition of the private property. Anarchism, founded by Bakunin and Proudhon, had a different objective: achieve freedom, eliminating the state, the property, or the church. To achieve their purpose, a revolution led by peasants and proletariat was necessary. In 1864, workers' movements from all over Europe met in the First International in London, an organization that encouraged cooperation between workers in different countries. It included socialists, communists, and anarchists. The two leading members were Marx and Bakunin, but their disagreements led to its dissolution in 1876. Well, this has been a summary of this unit. I hope you had enjoyed it, and let's see in the next video about imperialism. See ya!